Council chamber. Tsunade groaned. Tsunade rubbed her temples in mental agony. She hadn't expected preparing an army consisting of all the elemental nations would be so difficult. She, Shibuki, Mifune, Baki, and the other Kage had just finished finalizing their partnership. They now sat at the round table, moving on to the important matters. First order of business was what was to happen with the Jinchuriki. I think they should fight, the Raikage stated. They are the most powerful of us all. It would be a waste to make them sit in the back lines. I would have to agree with Mei Terumi, the newly appointed Mizukage added. Yagura was able to hold off my forces with ease while under Madara's control, and he's one of the weaker Jinchuriki. Onoki merely grunted in agreement. Mifune was impassive. Mifune was impassive, since he wasn't as well versed in the tailed beasts as Mifune was impassive, since he wasn't as well versed in the tailed beasts and their hosts. Baki didn't have any strong opinions either way. He knew Gaara would do what he thought was best for everyone in the end. Shibuki spoke next. I agree they are powerful, but so is Madara. There's a reason he was able to control the Nine-Tails with such ease during his last battle with Hashirama Senju. And let's not forget they are the target of this war. If they fall, we all fall. Shibuki's words are sound, Tsunade sighed. I think we should keep them out of the fight at least until we know... Shibuki's words are sound, Tsunade sighed. I think we should keep them out of the fight, at least until we know the army we're going to face. A folded his arms. Yes, I do see the appeal of that strategy. It would be a good idea to know what we're facing before sending our best shinobi to the front lines. Mei sighed reluctantly. It's better than nothing. Baki and Mifune agreed. Then all we need to do is find a place where they can lay low. All we need is to find a place where they can lay low, away from the battlefield, Onoki commented. I have that covered, A stated. We can let them stay on... I have that covered, A stated. We can let them stay on Genbu, the island turtle. It serves the same function as the Leaf's Forest of Death, but also as a mobile fortress of sorts. Since it can be constantly changing its location, it's the perfect place to let the Jinchuriki lie low. Sounds good, Mei said. Well, sounds good, Mei said. Now that they are taken care of, we also need to decide how we're going to defend the... Sounds good, Mei said. Sounds good, Mei said. Now that they are taken care of, we also need to decide how we're going to defend our villages while most of our shinobi are going to fight. Sounds good, Mei said. Now that they are taken care of, we also need to decide how we're going to defend our villages while most of our shinobi are going to be fighting. We can leave the Genin and a select few Chunin and Jonin behind to protect the civilians, Shibuki suggested. I'd also ask if my people could stay in one of the larger villages until the war is over. Our home is small and could be an easy target. And since we have less shinobi... And since we have less shinobi, we won't be able to leave some to defend. Tsunade smiled, seeing Shibuki's pleading expression. Don't worry, Shibuki. The hidden leaf will accommodate as many as we can, and then some. She chuckled. Naruto would kill me if I didn't help Fu's people. We will take those the leaf can't accommodate, Baki declared. I know Gaara would want to do it. We will take those the leaf can't accommodate, Baki declared. I know Gaara would want us to do so. Onoki folded his arms. Now, how about we get to the biggest issue? How is our allied shinobi force going to operate? We need a top commander, then skilled individuals who can lead separate groups. Before we decide all that, we should get some information on the enemy and their strategy for this battle, Mifune suggested. Before we decide all that, we should get some information on the enemy and their strategy for this battle, Mifune said. I suggest we put together an intelligence unit. Their first mission will be to learn about Madara's army, and once the war begins, they can act as the communications hub for our people. Tsunade closed her eyes in thought. Tsunade closed her eyes in thought. So, it would have to be filled with our top strategists, some skilled sensory ninja, and the Yamanaka with their mind transmission jutsu. I take it you have some suggestions, Mei asked the Hokage. So do I, she replied after seeing her nod. Then we should get them to work as soon as possible, Mifune said. Now let's decide who will act as the commander of our army. I would vote for the Raikage. The others agreed for A to take the role shortly after. Before their meeting ended, Onoki suggested some joint training exercises between the villages, much to everyone's surprise. The Tsuchikage was the last person they expected to give such an idea. We need to get our shinobi used to working with each other. I know full well our ninja hold grudges against each other, since I'm one of those people. But if we want to work as a coherent unit, we need to get rid of that hatred. Everyone agreed, and set up a time before each returning to their villages. Leaf Village Hospital, next day. Sasuke finally awoke from his medically induced sleep. His eyes were covered with bandages. He sensed someone beside him, but his mind was still foggy. He slowly reached his hand out, searching for the person. I'm here, Sasuke, Sakura whispered, taking his hand in her own. She helped the Uchiha to sit up. The surgery was a success. Your brother's eye should be functioning within a few minutes. However, your Rinnegan will take several hours at least. Sasuke nodded. Thanks. So, what did you do with my other eye? It's sealed away. Why? Just in case, Sasuke answered, clawing at the uncomfortable bandages. He could feel the power settling inside him from behind the white cloth. It was like he was an entirely different person. He let his chakra flow through his arm. Although he couldn't see it yet, his chakra felt stronger. He was forced to stop when Sakura knocked him in the head. No using that chakra directly after a surgery. You can do that after you're discharged. Sasuke sighed. And how long will that take? 2 hours. We need to make sure your chakra system adapts. 2 hours. We need to make sure your chakra system adapts to the Renegon properly. Kurama was very specific on what to look for. Kurama was very specific on what to look out for. Sasuke sighed again. Can I at least take these bandages off? Just a moment, Sakura assured him. True to her word, Sakura began peeling away the cloth. She was careful not to touch his skin, especially around his face, which was bound to be sensitive. After removing the last of the bandages, she inspected him. After removing the last of the bandages, she inspected him one last time. She then used a hairbrush to cover his left eye socket, which held the Rinnegan. Now, the Uchiha... She then used a hairbrush to cover his left eye socket, which held the Rinnegan. Now, the Uchiha had a few spikes of hair covering his left side, along with his regular side. Now, the Uchiha had a few spikes of hair covering his left side, along with his regular style. Alright, you can open your Mangekyo Sharingan now. Sasuke let out the breath he didn't know he was keeping in. He slowly opened his eyes. He slowly opened his eye, which were... He slowly opened his eye, which was already morphed into a... He slowly opened his eye, which was already morphed into their eternal form. He saw its reflection in the mirror Sasuke... He saw its reflection in the mirror Sakura held for him. The pattern was a blend of his and Itachi's Mangekyo. The red glow seemed to be brighter, and the black of the eye seemed even darker. Just make sure you don't activate it accidentally, Sakura muttered. Sasuke simply nodded. He could already feel the chakra coursing through it, and it felt amazing. As Sakura put down the mirror, he deactivated his Sharingan. Although it felt powerful, just activating it took a large amount of chakra. Fortunately, once his Rinnegan had settled in, his chakra would also increase, which meant he only had to learn to control both eyes. Fortunately, once his Rinnegan had settled in, his chakra would also increase, which meant he only had to learn to control both eyes. Two hours went by with no issues. 2 hours went by with no issues. Sakura did one last 2 hours went by with no issues. Sakura did one last... 2 hours went by with no issues. Sakura did one last inspection, giving Sasuke the... 2 hours went by with no issues. Sakura did one last inspection, giving Sasuke the good news. Your Rinnegan is integrated into your body perfectly. Perhaps a little too well. Why do you say that? Sasuke asked as he stood and did a few stretches. Sakura closed her eyes. Well, let's just say your chakra has Sakura closed her eyes. Well, let's just say your chakra... Sakura closed her eyes. Well, let's just say your chakra has had no adverse effects. If anything, it's like your chakra was already. If anything, it was like your chakra was already made for the Rinnegan. Sasuke looked at Sakura for a moment. Well, Kurama and the tailed beast seemed to think I was a good fit for the Rinnegan. Perhaps they knew I'd be able to live through the surgery and come out stronger. Sasuke looked at Sakura for a moment. Well, Kurama and the tailed beast seemed to be. Well, Kurama and the tailed beasts. Well, Kurama and the. Well, Kurama and the tailed beast seemed to think I would be a. Sasuke looked at. Sasuke looked at Sakura for a moment. Well, Kurama and the tailed beast seemed to think I was a good fit for the Rinnegan. Perhaps they knew I'd be able to live through the surgery and come out stronger. Sakura huffed. If you ask me, the tailed beasts are hiding something from all of us. Good, so I'm not the only one, Sasuke responded. Now, am I free to leave? Sakura nodded. If you start feeling pain anywhere in... Sakura nodded. If you start feeling pain anywhere in your body, I want you to come to me right away. Got it? She asked sternly. Sasuke nodded. Don't worry, I will. He let a smile form. I'll see you later, Sakura. I'll see you later, Sakura. Sakura couldn't help but smile back as Sasuke exited the hospital. As he opened the front door, he had to shield his eyes from the sun's glare. His eyes would need a while before they were used to seeing again. He instantly used a body flicker to appear in Training Ground 12. He looked down at his arm, charging up at Chidori. The lightning seemed to be brighter, with a silvery color, despite not having his curse mark activated. He unleashed the lightning as a Chidori bolt. The resulting explosion was easily twice as strong. So, my raw power has increased. Now, let's see if I can perform some other elemental ninjutsu. Sasuke weaved a series of hand signs. Water style, giant vortex jutsu. The large projectile formed in a matter of seconds, forming a large crater when it landed. Sasuke looked at his hands. He had never used a water ninjutsu before, but it felt so easy, as if he had always used them. He then channeled wind chakra through his sword. He used wind style occasionally, but this time it was hard to control the amount he used, due to how easily he used wind style occasionally, but this time it was hard to control the amount he used, due to how easy it felt. Well, I've got access to all the basic chakra natures. Now, how about I try using my Mangekyo? Sasuke muttered to himself. His sight focused on one of the training posts. Despite not knowing what his Mangekyo ability was, he channeled chakra into it without worry. The post he was staring at burst into black flames, quickly eating away as the blonde. The post he was staring at burst into black flames, quickly eating away at the wood until nothing remained. I've got Amaterasu as well, Sasuke realized. Does that mean I have Tsukuyomi as well? Wait, do I even have a second Mangekyo power, since I only have one Sharingan? He looked at another training post, activating Amaterasu. He then focused solely on the black flames, channeling chakra into his Rinnegan. Behind his hair, he could feel the Rinnegan pulse, a flash of red filling his vision. He assumed the red flash was the cause of him focusing. He assumed the red flash was the cause of him focusing on his Mangekyo. He assumed the red flash was the cause of him focusing on his Mangekyo abilities instead of the Rinnegan's. The black flames in front of him stopped burning the training post, collecting into a single black ball. So I can both summon Amaterasu, but I can also manipulate it too. That puts me one step above Itachi with his use of Amaterasu. I guess I should give this power a name, Sasuke paused to think. Blaze style. Yes, that will work. He decided it was time to test out the Rinnegan. He pulled out a scroll Naruto had given him the other day. Inside was a description of all the Rinnegan abilities the Paths of Pain had used. He doubted he'd ever use the Six Paths ability to control. Corpses, or the power to mechanically manipulate his body, or the use of the black chakra rods would be. He decided it was time to test out the Rinnegan. He pulled out a scroll Naruto had given him the other day. Inside was a description of all the Rinnegan abilities the Paths of Pain had used. He doubted he'd ever use the Six Paths ability to control corpses, or the power to mechanically manipulate his body. But the use of the He doubted he'd ever use the Six Paths ability to control corpses, or the power to mechanically manipulate his body. But the use of black chakra rods would be useful. He reached his arm out, condensing chakra into his palm. A black staff began to grow from his hand until it was as tall as himself. He held the chakra rod, spinning it in his hands. It was extremely lightweight, but also seemed durable. If he could learn to manipulate its size and shape, he would have access to unlimited. If he could learn to manipulate its size and shape, he would have access to. If he could learn to manipulate its size and shape, he would have access to an unlimited supply of weapons. He decided to test out these summoning animals. He didn't use the summoning jutsu often, but they might prove useful with their bizarre abilities. A few seconds later, a multi-headed dog appeared in front of him. It had a pair of Rinnegan, which Sasuke found that he could see through. It was unsettling to be staring at himself, so he desummoned the beast. Let's see if I can use that gravity manipulation technique, Sasuke thought. Almighty push. The tree line in front of him was blown away, leaving torn up earth in its place. Sasuke blinked in surprise before focusing on one of the uprooted trees. After waiting 5 seconds, he called out, "Universal pull!" A tree flew towards him, fast. He had to jump out of its path, landing a few feet away. "Whoa, you're certainly using those new powers with ease," a voice commented from behind him. Sasuke turned to see Naruto walking towards him, an orange fox with 9 tails in his arms. The tiny form of Kurama jumped from his grasp, staring at the Uchiha. I see the tailed beasts are starting to come out of their hosts more often, Sasuke commented. Kurama huffed. Anything to get away from that body for a few moments. Kurama huffed. Anything to get out of that body for a few minutes. Hey, Naruto growled playfully. Kurama rolled his eyes and turned back to the Uchiha. I said I'd help you use my father's eyes. The other tailed beasts wanted to help too, but they and their hosts had other duties to attend to. Now, Uchiha, I want you to kneel for me. I need to inspect your eye. Sasuke looked at the fox. Confused, but complied. He pushed his hair to the side, revealing the rippling purple pattern. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise as Kurama stared deeply into the Rinnegan. It has settled in nicely. You were right. You were the right choice to take on this responsibility. Now, there are a few things you should both be aware of. Sasuke and Naruto tensed as the fox hopped onto the blonde's shoulder. The first is that the Rinnegan has a number of limitations in its current state. Fortunately, those limitations can be overcome with relative ease, since I'm here. All I need to do is share a piece of my chakra with you until the Rinnegan has accepted it. What will that do? Naruto asked. My father's eyes respond best with us tailed beasts. In truth, any Jinchuriki could receive a pair of Rinnegan and be able to use them with relative ease. However, we made a decision, back when Hashirama sold us off to the villages, to never allow one of our hosts to wield them. Uchiha are the next. My father's eyes respond best with us tailed beasts. In truth, any Jinchuriki could receive a pair of Rinnegan and be able to use them with relative ease. However, we made a decision, back when Hashirama sold us off to the villages, to never allow one of our hosts to wield them. Uchiha are the next best candidates, so my chakra is just going to act as a key to let you use the Rinnegan with zero effort. Sasuke nodded. Are there any other limits? Kurama nodded. Although you'll be able to use them with Kurama nodded. Although you'll be able to use it with ease, the Rinnegan still uses a large sum of chakra. Even though it's increased your reserves, you still need to improve upon it yourself. I would recommend you focus on increasing it when you're not I would recommend you focus on increasing it when you're not training with the Rinnegan. Sasuke sighed. I understand. I'll get to work right away. Hold up, Naruto shouted, pointing at Sasuke. There was another reason I came to see you today. You remember my fight against our peers when I first got back to the village? Sasuke nodded. Naruto smirked. And do you remember that Tsunade wanted the two of us to have a fight as well, but we never got the chance to? Sasuke's eyes gleamed in surprise. You want to do that right now? He asked with a smirk. Naruto grinned back, already slipping into his battle stance. Kurama atop his shoulder groaned. I guess I'll take my leave now. Just don't tear apart the entire village during your fight, the fox muttered as he vanished in smoke. Naruto and Sasuke circled each other, adrenaline filling their veins. They both knew each other's abilities, so it was just a matter of who could use those skills more effectively. No Sage Mode, no Amaterasu. Sound fair? Sasuke asked, his hand. No Sage Mode, no Amaterasu. Sound fair? Sasuke asked, his hand hovering over his sword. Sure, not that it'll help you much, the blonde smirked before disappearing in a yellow flash. Sasuke whipped around just in time to block a kunai swipe. He pushed back, planting his foot into the earth. The ground beneath Naruto began to shoot up in the form of spikes. The blonde dodged easily, charging up a Rasen shuriken. He threw the sphere of chakra at Sasuke, who simply raised his hand. The Rasen shuriken and his palm collided, the jutsu slowly being sucked in thanks to the Rasen shuriken and his palm collided, the jutsu slowly beginning. The Rasen shuriken and his palm collided, the jutsu slowly being sucked in thanks to the Rinnegan's chakra absorption technique. Naruto appeared in front of him, two swords brandished. Sasuke's body lit up with lightning, the two running too fast to be tracked. Naruto deactivated 40 out of his 50 gravity seals, with Sasuke doing the same. If anyone was present, they would barely be able to see yellow and black blurs fly past their vision. Each time they clashed, a violent boom was heard. Fire style, Phoenix Flower Jutsu. Water style, Water Needle Jutsu. The two jutsu cancelled each other out. Sasuke raised his arm, shooting a black chakra rod from his palm. Naruto ducked under it, unleashing a barrage of Hiraishin kunai. Sasuke used Almighty Push to stop them. As the blades flew back, Naruto's Shadow Clone army flashed to each one, calling in unison. Ultimate Thunder Spear! Sasuke took in a sharp breath, since he still had the 5-second time limit, he couldn't blast them away, and he couldn't absorb all of them either, so there was only one thing to do. Come forth, Susanoo! A purple ribcage formed in a split second, followed by a skull and a pair of arms. The bolts of lightning filled both fighters' vision, but Naruto knew Sasuke was unscathed. He wasn't out for blood, so he held back the lightning's power. But even if he didn't, Sasuke's strongest defense would still protect him, even if it was at one of its weaker stages. Sasuke stood in the center of a small crater. Naruto had to admit, his Susanoo was a sight to behold. The purple skeleton was imposing, and that was without its armor and weapon of choice. Naruto smirked, however. The Susanoo used a hefty amount of chakra, which meant Sasuke couldn't keep it up forever. His point was proven when Sasuke deactivated the technique, powering up his lightning cloak. Naruto's body lit up in flames, both vanishing due to pure speed once again. Their fight quickly brought them into the forest that was part of the training grounds. The branches were shaking violently, with the occasional tree being thrown into the air. Giant Rasengan! The swirling sphere materialized in an instant, creating another large crater. Sasuke avoided the blast, weaving two sets of hand signs, one with each hand. He empowered his fireball with great breakthrough, unleashing white-hot fire. Unleashing white fire towards Naruto. Naruto drew his Hiraishin kunai, holding it out towards the flames, with the Hiraishin marker aimed forward. The seal sprouted off the kunai into the air, expanding to protect his body. When the flames struck the seal, it began to get sucked away by the flying Raijin. A few seconds later, the fire was gone. The blonde flashed behind Sasuke, who turned to redirect his punch. A flurry of strikes were exchanged, but none made contact. A three-pronged kunai appeared in Naruto's grip, slashing downwards. Sasuke blocked with a chakra rod from his palm. Naruto jumped back as the rod grew into a staff, the Uchiha twirling it in his hand. Naruto jumped back as the rod grew into a staff, the Uchiha twirling it in his hand. Naruto smirked, his special Uzumaki sword appearing in his hand. Sparks flew in every direction, trees continued to get uprooted, craters were formed. The duel between Naruto and Sasuke was causing slight vibrations to be felt throughout the village. Both knew they should end their fight soon, or else they would have Tsunade breathing down their neck. But neither of them wanted to lose either. "How about one last exchange to finish this off?" Sasuke asked, taking in a long breath. "Fine by me, but only if I get to go first," Naruto replied, throwing his Hiraishin kunai into the air. "Multi-Shadow Clone Jutsu!" A dozen Narutos appeared in smoke, each one charging up Rasen's shuriken. They threw the projectiles. Sasuke's body lit up in purple chakra, his Susanoo forming. He then activated his curse mark, subsequently making black flame markings spread across the skeletal being. Sasuke reached his arm out, making the Susanoo's arm do so as well. "Power up, Susanoo!" At Sasuke's command, purple flesh sprouted from the skeleton. At Sasuke's command, purple flesh sprouted around the skeleton, forming its first set of armor. 2 horns sprouted from the head. Chakra built up around the arm, a wrist-mounted bow coming into existence. Sasuke drew back a lightning arrow, empowering it with the curse mark, making it turn a bright silver. The two attacks collided, creating an explosion that was seen across the entire village, with the resulting shockwave being felt by all the residents. The training ground was mostly gone, leaving a hole in the earth, easily the size of one of the Hokage monument faces. Naruto landed with a thud that was drowned out by the dying explosion noise. Sasuke stood amidst the blast, his Susanoo showing minor cracks along the arms, but otherwise unscathed. Sasuke took in a sharp breath before exhaling, letting the purple aura around him to fade away. "Does that satisfy you?" the Uchiha asked as Naruto stepped out of the smoke. "Not really," Naruto admitted, "but we better get out." "Not really," Naruto admitted, "but we better get out of here right away, or else we'll get an earful from Tsunade." Sasuke smirked. "Right. If one of the tailed beasts has the time, do you mind sending one of them?" Sasuke smirked. "Right. If one of the tailed beasts has the time, do you mind sending them over to help with the Rinnegan?" Naruto nodded. "Thanks. I'll be in my compound." Naruto grinned. "You mean you're in Sakura's compound, right?" Sasuke raised an eyebrow, understanding his meaning a split second later. "That's not happening for a long time. You know that." Naruto shrugged. "Well, at least you've decided it's going to happen. It would have been a waste of time to let the two of you break up." Sasuke rolled his eyes. "What about you and Hinata? Surely you've decided with her." Naruto's smile grew even wider. "Of course, but we're still teenagers. We made a decision to put off all that until we're adults. And now, after the war is over too." Sasuke nodded in acceptance before waving farewell. The Uchiha vanished in a lightning-styled body flicker. Naruto flashed away as well, appearing back at his apartment. He needed to add the final touches to his seal for Karin, then prepare He needed to add the final touches to his seal for Karin, then prepare some for the Kage. As the only seal expert besides Hinata who was helping elsewhere. As the only seals expert besides Hinata who was helping elsewhere, and Jiraiya who was in the Hidden Rain, he had a lot of work to do. He sat down on the floor, quickly getting to work, beginning the most complex seal he'd ever created.